Welcome to the coffee show, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Kirk Pearson and joined now by Mikael Jasin, the reigning World Barista Champion. And we pulled a crowd for this one. Oh my goodness. What was it like walking from where you just were to here, which was about a 100-meter walk, but
it took me a while, yes.
Okay. Is that what it's like for you in everyday life in Indonesia now?
Yeah, a little bit, especially in coffee shows where it's all about coffee and yeah, I guess people know about me and it becomes like that.
I'll tell you what, I even got stressed out walking just then, going out there. There are, like, the last 2 days have been busy, but this is complete and total pandemonium. So
yeah,
you know,
no, but I'm super grateful. You know, it's pretty crazy to have that kind of support from people as a coffee professional. I think only recently we started to see that for not just for me, but for a lot of other coffee professionals as well, and it's really great to see.
Well, coffee's definitely getting into the mainstreams, and I think the stars sort of aligned for this event, didn't they?
Yeah.
Because you've got you winning the World Barista Champion around this time last year.
Yeah.
And then the Indonesian Specialty Coffee Association was able to negotiate having this show here.
Yeah.
And now it's here. And you've got Baru in the
Bayu, yes.
Bayu in the final of the Indonesian in the World Brewers Cup Championship. What's going to happen if he wins? Like, if what will happen in this building if he wins?
I think it's gonna explode, man. It's crazy. Like, I remember I watched Anthony won in Melbourne, and that was really crazy.
It was.
Yes, and I think you can see it in everyone's faces. Everyone's very excited, but I don't think we had as many people in Melbourne compared to this show, right? So yeah, if he wins, it's gonna be crazy. But even going to the final yesterday, everybody stayed for the announcement, and then when he was announced eighth, I think. So we were pretty nervous, and when he was announced, it was just crazy, very emotional to do that at home. Not everybody can do that, right? So it's crazy.
What does it mean for you to sort of be the World Barista Champion in an event like this? Like, the response is like, you know, we've had a few people come and spectate during the podcast here, but there's a fair few more today. Everyone's got their cameras out. Mikael's here. How do you feel about all that?
It all feels like a dream, to be honest, because World of Coffee itself, we've been trying to bring it here for a while. I don't know if you've had Daryanto here yet, but
we have. Yep.
Yes, yeah, I'm sure he told you about the story, but it's something that you have to prove, right? You can't just host a World of Coffee. You have to prove that your industry is ready, that you have all these resources and logistics. But also, I feel like you have to prove in a global stage to, like, your competitors also need to prove themselves. And in the past few years, a lot of us have made it to the finals. This was announced before I won, so it's not because I won and then we have World of Coffee. A lot of people thought about it that way, but it was actually announced on the semi-final round, I think, before my performance. I didn't know it was gonna happen, and then I remember I was about to welcome the judges, and then Sierra, who was the MC at the time, was like, "Oh, before Mikael starts, we'll have this announcement," and then they play the World of Coffee announcement, and it made me super emotional. I was about to step in, and then it actually gave me some extra fuel for that semi-final round.
We had Boram in just a few hours ago, and when we spoke to him, it kind of sounded like you both had a similar journey to becoming the World Barista Championship. He had to go through 3 times to qualify to win, and so did you. And following on from that, your theme for the whole thing was about kind of putting yourself through the fire and coming back and persevering.
Yeah.
After all that, how do you feel post World Barista Championship, I guess, now that you've done that? Because it seems like your life's probably a lot more crazy. Like, you went from one stress to the other. How does that all, how do you manage all that?
It is definitely crazier. I used to travel quite a bit, but then after I won it, it became a lot more. But I'm just really grateful, man. Like, a lot of us competitors work really hard to be able to get to that point, and a lot of people who competed even before me still trying to win, right? So for me to be able to finally get it after 3 times competing, after 9 years of competition, it was a dream came true, and I tried to be grateful for that and reminder of that. And it's it's very easy to lose yourself in all of this and get your head too big. But I'm lucky to be surrounded by people who constantly bring me down not really bring me down, but to remind me of who I was and how I started. So it's a good mix of being grateful, but also being reminded to sort of stay grounded. Yeah.
What's next for you? Like sometimes when I really want something and then I get it, the feeling for me is like, oh, well, now what do? I've got it. Like the chase of something is almost better than having it. So if you're obviously a competitive person, if you see through winning the World Barista Championship, what's next after that? Like how do you see yourself making an impact?
Yeah. So a really great question. And it's a question that a couple of people they've asked me this as well. And those two are Daryanto and Hide. People who have mentored me throughout all this. Because as you said, for competitors, that's a lifelong dream, right? And then when you finally got it, I was conscious of it. I knew during this 18 months that I have, I'm a bit more on a sort of receiving mode where I want to try to enjoy this year and a half that I have as the current World Barista Champion. And also at the same time, try to explore different opportunities and figure out what I want to do. But I like competition because I can tell stories, actually. Sure, I want to be the best in the world at what I do, but I also like to share my story, share my journey. And I think I don't know exactly what's next, but I'm starting to find that through Oma Cafe, actually. And I don't know if you've seen our booth. We tell story of the diversity in Indonesia and how all of that is still united through our national motto of unity and diversity. And I think that is something that we can do, and that platform is being used to highlight a lot of different Indonesian ingredients, cultures, heritage, and I like to tell stories that way. So maybe something along that line, and the impact will be, I guess, to give platform to either people who don't have the voice and produce those things, or the ingredients to speak for themselves. Yeah.
Well, I did. I tried to go to the Oma Cafe booth, but it's like absolutely heaving over there. I can't get in.
Yeah.
But we did actually go to Oma Cafe the other day.
Yes, you did.
And had
How was it?
It was fantastic. Had a really interesting time. We actually we had the pleasure of having you make some drinks for us a few months ago in Melbourne as well. But then your staff are very professional.
Yes.
I forget the
Odi Georges.
Yeah, so he's the Indonesian Coffee and Good Spirits champion.
He's competing in
really,
June. Yeah.
Really knows what he's doing. There was a clarified espresso, like a distilled espresso drink that I found really interesting. You're onto something really good there. Obviously, you're a proud Indonesian. We had the pleasure of going to just outside of Bandung to a producer called Classic Beans. So thanks for the connection there.
Classic is great.
One thing that I kind of feel like, and this is in no way meant to be critical, but I kind of feel like there's so much room for growth in Indonesian specialty coffee. And I said this to a few people already, but getting investment in the farms and getting some infrastructure behind some of the producers, it seems like it's probably the next step in Indonesian specialty coffee. So you're the fourth biggest producer, and not all of it is 90 plus or that sort of thing, and nor should all of it be. But I guess there's probably a lot of room for improvement there. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, for sure. I think events like this are very important to push that growth, right? Because people see that there's a lot of excitement globally about specialty coffee, and there's opportunity to explore more of this type of events, and hopefully that will give more emphasis on our coffee as well. Because for a really, really long time, the focus is to export coffee, right? And when you do that, you start thinking more about volume rather than quality. But I think there's room for both. With the example of other producing countries like Brazil and Colombia, they have both their regional coffees that supply majority of coffee demand, but also they have coffees that can win world championships. And I think that's the next frontier for Indonesian beans. And as you said, it takes a lot of effort, and hopefully we'll get more, not just investments, but people putting as much effort and energy into the coffee beans itself, not just the cafes and the competition and things like that. But yeah, it is challenging because it's quite different here in Indonesia. A lot of smallholder farmers, the topography or the area is very different. It's very mountainous, very hilly compared to a flat area like in other producing countries as well. So a lot of that, but I'm pretty hopeful.
Yeah, and I think the Cup of Excellence has been excellent for Indonesia. Like I've seen the Proud Mary is one good example in Australia that buy some of the best Indonesian lots every year. What are some of the best producers? Can you name a few that you think are like it should be on everyone's radar?
Well, you went to Classic. Classic is a really good example of doing it properly and doing it well and have really good coffee to show for it. I think majority of producers think of only the short to medium term solution, which is coffee processing or post-harvest processing. And that's great because it really does impact. And we have great coffee producers who are doing that. But like Classic, what they do, they try to do regenerative farming and a lot of sustainability effort to make sure that the coffee is good, not just today, but also for years to come, right? So they're a good example. Wow, too many to names, man. But the COE regulars are the great ones. So people like Hendra Maulisar from Avatar. I don't know if you've had his coffee. I've seen his coffee in Europe. I've seen his coffee in the States when I was at SCA. I've seen his coffee in Australia. And then Flores is also a great example. They've been doing a lot of good things. I've used Flores coffee from Tuang Coffee for my WBC in Milan. So it's great. A lot of it in West Java as well. So around where Classic Beans is. And then, yeah, few of other farmers that are really doing great. What's great though that we used to have a problem still have a problem where the farmers are much older compared to other countries. Because these farmers spend so long and so hard so that their children don't become farmers, right? Because here the reality is it's hard to make a living out of selling coffee. I think actually Carlos Escobar had a really great point. I watched his routine and then he was saying, I left coffee not because I didn't love coffee, but because it was impossible to make a living out of coffee. It's the same sort of story in Indonesia as well. But now these days there are a lot more and more younger people going back to their family land, going back to their family farms and doing something. So I'm really hopeful that this younger crew will make a big impact.
Well, it's interesting you bring Carlos up because I watched him on the first day. I watched him just an hour ago or so as well. We had him on the podcast yesterday.
Cool.
And he said just that. And what a stark thing to say, because there's never really been a better time to get into coffee, to be honest.
Yeah.
Obviously prices has probably been the theme for the entire coffee industry this year, right? And you look at the commodity price, for example, that's gone up by like 4 times since a few years ago, so fourfold. And so it's higher than it's ever been. And you used the word there, hopeful. And I feel like with emerging middle classes in countries like this, countries like China, regions like the Middle East, there's huge amounts of people that are just becoming interested in coffee. And there needs to be enough produced to be able to, satisfy all those people. So, I mean, no one knows what the weather's going to do in the next 5 to 10 years, and no one knows what the markets will do in the next 5 to 10 years, but seems somewhat logical to me that it's probably a good time to get into coffee farming.
Yeah. I think it's still, with all those challenges, even climate challenges, things like tariffs or rising coffee price, I think it's still great because that's what you hear. But the reality on the ground, you've been all over the place as well, traveling in the past few months from one market to another, and you see everyone's still really, really excited to drink coffee, and also in all age groups. I know you went to Jago, you went to all these different places in Indonesia, and you've seen that this excitement is across age groups, but also across social classes. And I think that's, as you said, it's a great time to be in coffee. Yeah.
One thing that interests me, I've been thinking about this for the past day or so, is that once someone wins the World Barista Championship, they stop competing. And I'm kind of interested in this idea of like, what if someone wins it twice? Like, there's no rule really stopping someone going again.
No.
Like, but everyone's like, I've done it once, the monkey's off my back. Would you ever consider running again, being a 2-time World Barista champion?
I wouldn't say no, but It's
Ooh.
I wouldn't say no, but it's definitely not anytime soon because, well, I always say this. People ask me these questions as well, especially people who are pretty new to coffee. Because if you're an MMA fighter or if you're a soccer player, once you win, you go back until you retire, right?
Yeah.
And we don't really do that anymore. I think one is because we would like to give that opportunity to other people who also have been competing for a while, but also we don't get to pay to compete professionally, right? So there's not much financial sense to keep competing after you won, because then after you win, you use that as an opportunity to launch a career. But it's hard when you spend almost 10 years of your life dedicating yourself to this one game and you have to sort of quit while you're at the top. It's an uneasy feeling. And
Well,
yeah.
it would make me, honestly, it would make me feel depressed. Like, like knowing myself, then that's not questioning anyone else. It's just like, I feel like if I did that, I'd be like, I'd have a huge sense of like, you know, I wouldn't know what to do. I just wouldn't know what to do. I'm the type of person, I always have to stay real busy. Otherwise I just get so sad.
Yeah.
To that end, I don't know if we've ever had someone that's won the World Brewers Cup champion and the World Barista Championship.
We might. I don't know. Raul is up there.
Raul?
Yeah. He won 2012, I think. Yeah.
Is he the Guatemalan
he's the
competitor?
World
Right?
Barista Champion in 2012. You gotta fact check me on this one, but so he could be. You never. But I think Aga has tried to do that a couple of times with Coffee and Good Spirits. She won now Coffee and Good Spirits and Barista.
Matt Perger came very close. So he's won the Brewers Cup.
Yeah.
Came second in the World Barista Championship.
Yeah. So I don't know. I wouldn't say no, but I like to compete because I like to have the opportunity to be the best. But also I realize that I like the process and I like to tell stories. And the Barista Championship format is really good to tell stories. I don't think any of the other championship disciplines now is close to that. I think even brewers, you have to present your ideas, but the presentation score is lower than the barista presentation score, right? But yeah, I wouldn't say no to maybe one day compete in something else.
Well, I don't know. Maybe we got a little facts out of Mikael here. What would you change about barista competition if you're sort of starting again? We had Hidenori on the other day, and he said, I wouldn't tweak anything. I'd just completely dissolve it and start from scratch again.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a pretty radical idea.
Yeah.
What would you add?
I think I would love for it to be more of a spectator sport.
I've been saying this for like 3 days.
Because it's cool, and now we're getting more and more traction, but it's still very hard for a lot of people to be able to keep competing, because then you don't have as many eyeballs as you should and as you can. And eyeballs means better sponsorship, better pay for everyone. I feel like the judges should get paid instead of
get paid.
Yeah, instead of volunteering, because they're all volunteers. They all have to pay, I guess, to judge, right? Because they have to fly themselves in and all that. I think if they're also professionals, then they can dedicate a lot of their time and a lot of their life to be able to improve their judging skill as part of their job, not as part of their hobby, not as part of their passion. But I think that and making the sport more of a spectator sport will sort of grow it a lot further and faster.
I agree with you on all of that. And an idea I kind of thought of the other day was making the score sheets public as well.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it kind of gets deliberated on in a back room. No one knows the conversations. No one ever will know. And then, it's not like competitors upload their score sheets either. I kind of feel like all of that should be public.
Yeah.
And the best example of it being like the biggest and most, I guess, interesting sort of situation is your win, because you won by a point.
Yeah.
And like, that's not in any way questioning whether or not you should have won, but like 1 point out of 800 and whatever it is, like being the difference. Wouldn't it be awesome to know what's on the both score sheets?
Yeah. I actually never asked Jack his score sheet. I'll be very interested as well to know what was that difference in, right? Like, because it will be very interesting as well. Some people are stronger in their espresso course, some people are stronger in their presentation and things like that. When I do workshops, I always put my score sheet for the people who come to the workshop, and that's a great point for them to learn how to score in there. But yeah.
Cole and David, I spoke to them a few months ago in Dubai, and they were sort of explaining to me that in the final rounds of the World Barista Championship, the routine is beginning to matter more than the quality of the coffee. I mean, a lot of people can take that how they will, but the emphasis on the routine is far greater than it's ever really been. Do you agree with that? Was that something you planned for?
When we designed the routine, we were definitely thinking about it that way. Obviously, the coffee still have to deliver, right? But then in the final round, most of them know or really know how to make coffee. So especially with the coffee that I was using, like wash style geisha, it was very comfortable and it was more simpler to make it taste as great as it was. And the top three had also geisha from Deborah, right? So it was sort of the same window. I think the presentation or the routine itself really set the tone on how they would score you. And this is still, it's not really written in the rules, right? So it's kind of a lot of guesswork, but they're also looking for ambassador for specialty coffee, right? And I think that's why Cole and Dave sort of think about it that way and feel like the judges know you can make coffee already. Now, can you represent us, Specialty Coffee Association and Specialty Coffee at large, for your barista year? And everybody has their own sort of points that they talk about and what's important to them. And I feel like saying the right thing at the right moment for the industry also matters. I chose to talk about mindfulness and burning out in the space where there was a lot of animosity between thoughts and beliefs about processing techniques, about thoughts and beliefs about what innovation we should push forward, technologies and things like that. So I think it was a great time to talk about mindfulness because amidst all of this chaos, it's good to sort of sometimes take a step back and be present.
What's your relationship like with Jamison Savage, the producer of one of your coffees?
Yeah, is Jamison still here in Jakarta?
I saw him around the show yesterday.
Yeah.
I tried to get him on, but I think he might be flying or something now.
Yeah, no, Jamison actually was the first person who taught me how to make coffee at the farm level. So in 2017, he came to Indonesia for a project that we were doing with Daryanto. And the idea was to learn from him in Indonesia with Indonesian coffee and all the resources and tools that we have and how to try to make that better. So he came in, it was just right after Berg won in 2016. So the idea was to try to do carbonic maceration. But also he was telling me how to wash coffee properly, how to ferment coffee properly, dry coffee properly. So to be able to use his coffee to win was sort of closing the loop for me. It was really cool. Although for that one, I didn't specifically ask him for the coffee. I got the coffee through Cole, through Forward. And we knew we wanted to have a wash geisha. So we were scoping a lot of different things and just so happened that it was Jamison's coffee and yeah, it's great. My relationship with him, I don't know. We're cool. We hang out when we can hang out, but it's very hard to find schedule. The last time I actually sit down and talk to him was in SCAJ in Tokyo last year, 2024. The rest we just met at the show, and it's always like a 2 minutes conversation.
Yeah, gets busy.
It's crazy, yeah.
I really want to get to, we effectively made a mini documentary at Classic Beans the other day. It got me feeling like I want to do that in Panama and sort of show the world what Panama coffee is like. I think having content like that for people to view, you mentioned barista competition being a spectator sport before, right? And I kind of feel like we can do that sort of stuff so much better in coffee, but we need to apply the effort. And
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's going to be one of my goals for the next couple of years, I think. I really want to get to making more content like that.
I think because people can relate to, I'm sure, obviously they can't taste what the judges are tasting on stage. That's the limitation. But if they know what a Finca Deborah is and the story about Finca Deborah, or they know the coffee that is being used, the story behind that coffee, and the family who make them. And you can share that story through the audience, to the audience, through documentaries like that. Right? And if we do it with more effort, we can do all of that before the actual competition, or do sort of following the competitors around in the last week of their preparation for WBC. Yeah, certain competitors are doing that for themselves and their brands, but if us as an association can do it, or us as a community can do it, I think a lot more people will be interested to watch.
Well, I'm gonna make it something I try and do. I want to be the guy. What's one thing before we wrap up? What's one thing that we haven't spoken about that you'd like the people of the world to know?
Well, I get asked this a couple of times, but I don't think we've spoken. I think I was once a new barista in Melbourne in 2013, and there was a WBC in 2013. I didn't get to go to. I think at the time it was still at Fairgrounds, not.
Oh yeah, in Flemington.
Yeah, in Flemington, right? Not at my set, and I didn't get to go, but it was the moment where I started my dream. That's the very first time I had the realization that, oh, I can actually make this as a career, and this can be a step to being the best in the world, changing my life through coffee, and actually making a living out of coffee. So hopefully, with World of Coffee being in Jakarta, it allows more and more people, especially Indonesians, but also regionally and globally, to start their dream and embark on that journey to also one day be interviewed by you.
Oh. What a way to finish that. I love that. Before we wrap up, I do have to let everyone know about our partner, Time More. So Time More produce a lot of the amazing gear that's being used at the World Brewers Cup. So it's World Brewers Cup level brewing gear, and you can have it at home. Visit timemore.com. You can get yourself a kettle, you can get yourself a grinder, you can get yourself a hand grinder, and much more. That's timemore.com. You should get some. Mikael Jasin, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks,
I know
man.
you're really, really busy and you made time for us. I really appreciate it.
Awesome.
You're a
Thank
legend. Makasih.
you. Sama-sama.
Done.